Are we live? Are we ready? I think we are. The red button is on. So I'm going to sing you a little song, right, Al? Are you going to sing with me? Are you going to sing with me, Al?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm not sure what you're saying,
Really?
but I
Really?
know the good morning, good morning. That's about it. That's all I know.
It's nice to see you here. Good morning to you. Don't you know that song?
Yeah, I actually do. I probably could have gone with
And
that.
then you burst into the sun has got his hat on. Hip, 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 hooray. I used to sing that. We used
Don't
to
you
sing
have,
that
don't
song
you have to, don't
on
you
the
have to
way
dance?
to the beach. We would drive down to the south of France. This is when my daughter was about 6, so going back 40 years or something. And we used to have this competition: who can see the sea first. There was never a prize, you know. It's just a who saw the sea. Try saying that when you're drunk, when you're not sober. Whoever saw the sea first was the winner, and of course it was the Mediterranean. We're in the south of France, absolutely wonderful, and so on. And it was just enough in those days to be the winner. There were no prizes. You didn't get anything for being the winner. You were just the winner, claimed the winner. And we used to sing, "The sun has got his hat on, hip 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 hooray." Like, all right, enough of this frivolity. What are we doing this morning? What is this show all about? Why am I here? Who am I? And so on and so forth. All right, enough. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for watching. This may be the last time you choose to watch. Are you thinking right now, she's lost the plot? Do you know that saying, Al? She's lost the plot. You know
Yes.
what it means? It's just
Just kind of wandering around and not
she's
sure
gone a
where
bit,
you're headed.
she's gone a bit nuts. And for all of you out there who are a little bit nuts, who from time to time go a little bit nuts, as it seems I am doing this morning. Not really. We're just having fun. And I was talking to a lady yesterday who was saying to me that everybody thinks that she's crazy. And I said to her, but I think if, it's okay to be a little bit crazy. And if you're a little bit crazy, you're my kind of a person, because I'm a little bit crazy too. And the most fun people are those people who can always go a little bit crazy sometimes. I say that about my neighbor. She's a little bit crazy, but she's really, really nice. And what people don't understand is that, yes, it might be my British sense of humor, but that actually is a compliment from me. It might not sound like it, but it really means I actually really like her and I have fun because she's a little bit crazy. All right. So this morning, Al, we have Al from Colorado. Say good morning, Al.
Good morning, everyone.
We have Cachorro, who's wriggling about. If he doesn't settle down, I refuse to have another show where he started again. He's doing all the panting things, so might have to lock him in out or something in a bit. We have Cachorro next to me. Say good morning, Carolyn, who is to my far right.
Good morning, Carolyn.
No, good morning, Carolyn. And she's busy petting the dog at the moment. Come here, lie down. Come on, lie down. Come here. I swear I did not hurt him. I just grabbed the scruff of his neck. But he's one of those dogs who, if you even think to do anything horrible, yeah, I didn't hurt you. No, I didn't. Come on, then. He'll yelp before you've even touched him, because he's a baby. He's my baby, but he's a baby just the same. And we have Gregor, who is standing to my right side as always. So we say good morning to him too. So Al, do you have anything you want to start off the show with this morning?
No, just to follow up on the crazy piece. Just no one's normal, right? Define normal. It's fun to not be normal, right?
Well, I don't know what normal is.
I mean, who could define that, right?
Well, normal is different. You get it if you ask 10 people to describe what normal is, they'd probably get 10 different descriptions, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because we're all different. So you know, I'm not quite sure what normal is. I've never been normal myself. For those of you now hearing grunts and moaning, groaning, that's my dog in ecstasy. So please don't worry, I did not hurt him, all you dog lovers out there. What a baby he is. I just would like, before we start this morning, all right, we had a lovely email from, we get lovely emails from people. You're all of you out there who write to us, who, you know, send us your comments and so on. We read them all, and we get some lovely ones. We get some not so nice ones. We ignore those. We just trash those. But we read all the lovely ones. And we had a lovely lady emailing us to say, Rosemary, I love the show, but it's always, there's the but. And when you hear the but, you think, oh, here we go. There's going to be a complaint or something, which we're also very happy to read, because we always like to have people's input. And it's, you know, that's the way we learn to give you what it is you want. And she said to me, you know, it's all very well, all this talking and saying hello to everybody and so on. But she said, so many of us out there, we just want you to get down to the questions as quickly as you can, because through the questions we learn so much. Well, I agree with you. However, if you are a live participant on this show, or if when you look at the show, you see the chat room, there are so many people out there saying hello, hello, hello. We get all the emails saying hello, hello, hello. But there are so few people who actually will give us a question. Maybe it's because you feel that your question is not good enough. Maybe you feel, you know, that you don't have a question that we're going to listen to seriously or take seriously. I don't know what it is, but it's almost as if we have to twist people's arms up their back sometimes to get the questions. And so if I'm looking and there are only 5 questions, of course I'm going to be chatting. I'm going to be telling you stories. I'd much rather be answering your questions. So my darling, lovely lady who wrote that email, why don't you send in at least 10 dozen different questions? You can send them on my email and we'll try and address them as we go along through the weeks and the months ahead. Don't be afraid, any of you, all of you. If you want to send your questions ahead of time, if you can't make it live on the show, you know, send them to Rosemary at rosemaryaltea.com. We have a folder. We put all of the questions in the folder and we do our best to answer them as and when. But if we are running out of live questions and I choose to tell a story, or Al chooses to chat, or whatever it is we do, you know, that's what we do. So we want more questions from you. Don't feel that your question is going to be ignored. Do not feel that your question is in any way less than anybody else's question. Don't think that your question is going to be inadequate for the show, because, you know, we would like you to participate anyway. And I'm never going to say to anybody, well, that was a stupid question, wasn't it? I'm not going to say that, because if somebody asks a question, it means, even if I might think, well, I've answered that 5 minutes ago, but it means that this person has this question in their mind and it's an important question to them. And that's how we take these questions, right? How we take them, you know, we take them seriously. We take people's interest and we take people's questions seriously, right?
Correct. Yes.
So having said that, do we...
we do have a few questions. Yes.
All right. This is what I'd like to do. Also, while we're on the subject, okay, we try our best to go in order, but we have Carolyn and we have Al working through your questions. So if they're not always in order, or if for whatever reason you think we've skipped over your question, it's not necessarily because we don't want to answer it. If there is a question, then I'm saying this for Alan, for Alan, for Christine's Al's wife, while I think about it, for Alan, Carolyn, if there are questions on there that you think that I might not want to answer, or might not like to answer, please ask them anyway. I'll decide if, you know, I know that you're trying to, sometimes these guys are trying to protect me, or they're, you know, concerned that it might be an off-the-wall question or an oddball question. If it is, hand it to me. I'll know what to do with it. I might say I'm not answering that question because I just said I'm just going to say it's a stupid question. No, I won't say it's a stupid question. I'll do my best to answer all questions. Okay. All right. So who's going first? Carolyn, why don't we hand it over to you first?
Paul has a question.
Good morning, Paul.
And this is the Paul you know. Some years ago, I did a workshop with Rosemary to find my power symbol, a scallop shell. In soul signs, I'm a water soul. Scallops live in water. Is there a connection between soul and symbol?
Very often there is. Very, very often there is. My symbol is, well, it's an eagle feather. Oh, who would guess? Those of you who know would guess that my, very, very much of the earth, very sound. My soul sign is, I'm an earth sign. So yes, it doesn't always apply, but it's a little bit like astrology. If you're, you're whatever I don't know much about astrology, but if the planets that you're aligned with, you can be like, for instance, I'm a Taurian. You can be a double Taurian. You can be a double Earth sign. It happens that my astrological sign is Taurus, which is an Earth sign, and it also happens that my soul sign is also an Earth sign. So I've got a double whammy going on here, which means that I am thoroughly, truly, without a doubt, if there was any doubt by anybody, that I am well and truly entrenched in my earth sign energy. So I've got a double whammy there. So Paul, you've got a double whammy right there. Good question, and thank you for that. We are talking of soul signs, which I know is Carolyn's favorite book. We always say that, but it is yours, right? You love it.
Yes, it is.
We are actually one of the courses that we're going to be offering. So close now, right, Al? We're so close. But one of the courses we're going to be offering, not the first course, but certainly one of the courses we're going to be offering at some point, is the course on soul signs, so that you can learn all about relationships, your relationship to yourself, your relationship to anybody else on this planet, that your relationship to animals. If you have relationships with animals, you were going to do a thorough course on soul signs at some point in the future. Let's have our second question now.
So we have Carol, who asks,
good morning, Carol.
The name Rosemary wants to come out of my mouth when I try saying a friend's name. It's very nerve-wracking. Do you know why?
No. No. You mean, I'm not quite sure what you mean.
I asked her to clarify, and she said the name Rosemary keeps coming out of her mouth when she tries to say other names.
Well, all right. So when the name, what you need to do, Carol, is you need to, which Rosemary are you thinking about? Is it me, or is it another Rosemary that you know, or is it that you're a cook and you love to use the herb, the rosemary herb? So, you've got to clarify, first of all, if there is another rosemary, and it could be that, this particular rosemary that you're thinking of is very much on your mind. So then you have to sit down quietly and work out why she's on your mind, or that if it's the herb, the flower, why that's on your mind. Sit down quietly. Give yourself 10-15 minutes. Think about, well, why is this person on my mind? If it happens to be me, it could be that my name is a reminder to you of, your need for learning and for growth and for some sort of spiritual awareness. Then you got to take an action and do something about it. So, pay attention. If something is on your mind and it keeps popping up, you really need to pay attention to the whys and wherefores and the reasons for that. But only, I'm too far away to help you, darling. There's only you can do that. But you can do that. So you just need to sit quietly and think, well, all right, it keeps popping into my head. But, this is what makes me the kind of spiritual medium that I am, because I'm basically a nosy, curious, that'd be nice to me, curious person. I'm a very curious person. It would have occurred to me way before now to be asking, well, why? So you got to ask why. When you ask yourself why, think about, you know, the reasons why this name is and who you connect this name to. As I've said, if the name is, you know, when you say that name, it's because you're thinking of me. You're not really thinking of me necessarily particularly, but you're thinking of the work that I do or the kind of work that I do, which is, you know, indicative of your interest in spiritual matters. I hope that's helpful to you. Carolyn.
We've got Star Tarot White Witch.
No, come on. I've got to say it all. Hi, Star. Good morning.
Hi, Rosemary. I lost my beautiful mom last night in a very cruel way. I'm absolutely devastated. Can you tell me if she is with my Nan and her beloved Nan in the spirit world, and is she out of pain, please?
Well, Star. What a great name. I love that. I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm listening to Grey Eagle as I'm talking to you. If you've watched this show before, you know that I don't give messages. I actually, not quite true, is it really? Because from time to time I actually do. But I'm asking Grey Eagle about this situation for you because he can answer this way better than I can. Sorry, my attention is being dragged to my left here. So I'm going to dive in, and normally I would say, you know, I'm not sure, I don't know, whatever, but actually I do feel that your loved ones are all together. I feel that this situation, although it should not have been sudden, because there were lots of indications that this was going to happen, I feel for you that it seemed to be a very, very sudden and out of the blue. It's obviously a shock to you. It shouldn't be though, but it is. You know, I think that there were lots of indications that this was going to happen. Maybe it's that you just chose not to look, because, you know, sometimes if we're approaching a situation that we know is going to be really hard for us, and especially losing a mum who you obviously love very much, I can see why you would keep your eyes closed to that one and not want to know. I would certainly understand that. I can tell you that they are all together. I can also tell you that I'm catching glimpses of a few people actually, but two ladies come right to the front here. One older, quite an old lady actually. I feel that this indicate I'm being very cautious and very careful here, because I don't want to. I want to be very honest with you. Is this your mom? Is this your family? Grey Eagle is telling me yes. I'm going to say yes then, with some reservations, because we'd need much more time, I think. But I have a lovely lady waving at you, wanting to let you know that she's fine. And so I'm being a little cautious. She's not being a little cautious. She's waving furiously. So I'm going to say that someone here wants your attention, Star. And I think you'll understand that this is your mum. How about that? I feel so sad, but so happy, because I feel so sad for you, because I know your heart is broken. I just want to reach through this screen and give you a big hug. But I'm happy for your mum, because I think that, you know, I know she's happy, and I know she's with all of those lovely people that she perhaps never even, you know, well, she might have hoped to see them again, but now she has seen them and is with them. Al, let's have another question, shall we?
Sure. Denise asks,
good morning, Denise.
Why do dogs talk to me? Every dog I meet stands in front of me, staring intently, and then I just know what they need. It's unnerving and a little bit of a pain in the butt.
Oh, darling, you shouldn't be unnerved by that. That's a fabulous, fabulous gift. And obviously, animals, you have an affinity with them and they know it. And, you know, we know how bright many dogs can be. My puppy is standing puffing and huffing and just staring at me intently. He's trying to tell me, hey, come on, you know, can you give me something? I want more room on the sofa. He's used to sitting with me on the sofa and having no Carolyn in his spot, and that's what's wrong with him. So he's going to have to just live with it. You have this wonderful ability. Obviously, animals sense it, they know it. And, you know, if they find that person, obviously they find you and they feel that you know, that you can understand them, and you can, you know that, and you can, then, you know, all you need to do is just reach down and give them a little comfort, or even just extend your energy to them. You don't even need to necessarily touch them, just to extend your energy and just let them know, okay, I can hear you, I know. And that's all animals need. I don't know if you heard that big groan. Oh, you know, Carolyn's in my spot, so I guess I'll have this one instead. We can understand our animals, you know that, and so do I. Carolyn.
All right, Dean says.
Good morning, Dean. Dean, did you get your basement in? Are you all set to go? We've been thinking about you. I hope you have. I hope congratulations are in order and that your house is all in order once again. Now, let's go for the question.
If I was Rosemary, I would spend my waking hours asking questions of Grey Eagle. How does Rosemary resist doing this? And does Grey Eagle not like being asked questions?
Well, for a few years there, and actually on a very regular basis every day, I do ask questions. Even when I'm in the kitchen and we're cooking in the kitchen, did I leave it in long enough? What should I do? So on and so forth. I mean, Carolyn will see that if I've got something baking in the oven, I put the timer on. I put 2 timers on actually. But generally speaking, I'm up just prior to the timer going. Is that right, Carolyn?
Yep. Because
Grey Eagle is tapping me on the shoulder saying, I think it's done. You know, so he gets involved as well. And, you know, Grey Eagle, there was a time a few years ago, and I might have said this before, and I feel quite embarrassed saying it, I have to tell you. There was a time when I would just ask question upon question upon question upon question with no consideration, I have to tell you, with no consideration whatsoever for the fact that, you know, I might be being a bit of a pain. You know, when you have children who are continually, my daughter was like this, continually saying, mummy, mummy, what's this? Well, why is that? Well, and every time you ask the question, you answer the question, yes, but why, mummy? But why this or why that? Yes, but why? But why? To the point that even the most patient of mothers just wants to say, stop. Because, you know, you can only do so much, you can only answer so many questions. Plus, you do know as a parent that your child can only absorb so much information. So sometimes kids are asking why, and it seems that they're just asking why because they just like to ask why. And we get frustrated. And so there was a time when I would ask Grey Eagle, much as a child will ask its parent, why? We got to a point on one particular subject, and I was just obviously not being satisfied, no matter how many questions I asked. And he very gently and very lovingly said to me, Rosemary, you're making my ear bleed. In other words, you have to stop because you're being a pain. And he was absolutely right. He said it in the gentlest and the kindest way. And since then, I have learned to temper my questions, to not bombard with questions, but if I ask a question, to try and absorb the answer and then to go from there. So Al.
So we have Sharon asked a question.
Good morning, Sharon. We're getting good questions today.
Yes, there's a lot of negative energy out there in this day and age, i.e. political, etc. How does all this negativity affect the earth, and how do we block it effectively?
It's very hard because you're right. There is so much negativity out there. There are so many, it's become the norm. And it's, before we go any further on this political realm, this was going on way before Trump. It probably is going to go on way after Trump, because for those of you who care, he's not going to be here forever, I can assure you. You know, it's become the norm for politicians to be mean to each other, to be awful to each other. I can't remember, there was a comedian a while ago who, you know, what did she do? She had a cardboard cutout of the head of one of the, I don't even remember who it was now, and was encouraging people to burn, you know, the, like a bit like an effigy, burn it. I mean, what gets into people in those ways? Their anger, their bitterness, their frustration, whatever it is, they need to think that, you know, it's funny. A lot of comedians are like this. There are some wonderful comedians, by the way, but there are a lot of comedians who think that if they're disparaging someone, then we're all going to laugh. And unfortunately, lots of people do laugh when we hear people being disparaged, or being, you know, when we hear somebody being mean about someone or nasty about someone. And all of these things, you know, they all build up and they all work together to, you know, exacerbate the problem, to make it worse, to make the problem worse. And obviously, okay, every Thursday morning before we do our YouTube show, I go on Facebook and we have a healing minute, and we ask for help, and we ask for good energy, and we ask for people to join us and to combine their energy with ours to create a wonderful and a positive healing energy that goes out into the universe. Unfortunately, in the same way, the negative energy does the same, and it's extremely, extremely destructive. The only thing as individuals we can do, because wouldn't it be nice if we could wave a magic wand and everybody would start being nice to each other, or they'd stop being so negative about life and about each other? I mean, wouldn't it be nice if we could wave that magic wand and change it? Unfortunately, we can't. And the politicians who are supposed to be leading us, not just in the US, but in every country throughout the world, the politicians who are supposed to be leading us are setting these really, really lousy, lousy examples. All of them, not just Trump. We'd love to beat on Trump. Not just Trump, but every politician. If you look at politicians and the way they treat each other, and that, you know, it makes you wonder how they treat their families. It makes you wonder what they're like at home, because if they're like this publicly, God help their families who have to suffer them behind closed doors. Because in my experience, if you're an aggressive and a mean person publicly, you're going to be just the same, if not worse, when you are behind closed doors and people can't see who you really can be. And these people are supposed to be examples to us. They're supposed to be examples of you know, positivity, gentleness, kindness. Where did all of that go? Where did it go? But as individuals, all we can do is to promote in our way, in our own lives, with our friends, with our families, to promote good, to promote positive. This is why Al and I decided to do our Everything is Attitude show that we do on Fridays, because really and truly, the attitude of the world stinks right now. And so we're trying in our small way. And if all of you in your small way tried the same, and if all of you knew someone and you encouraged those someones to you know, to promote kindness, positivity, good attitude, you know, to stamp out the cruelty and the meanness, to stand up when you hear someone disparaging someone else, to say, well, that's not nice. and can you be kinder? Or why can't we be kinder about this and this? I know that, I know that the response I get sometimes from people is, oh, they shrug the shoulder. Well, she's, you know what she does, don't you? She talks to dead people, so she's going to say that. Like that. Well, we can dismiss her then, because she's a crazy person. But if we all stood up and we all said, when we hear someone, our children, when we hear our children disparaging someone, when we hear, when we hear teachers or people in responsibility, or if you're in the workplace and you hear people disparaging each other, for goodness sake, stand up and say, can we be kind, everybody? Can we let's have a kindness day. Oh, wait, let's have every day a kindness day. And if we stand up as individuals, then we can, change the world. But it's going to take a lot of us to do it. And our energy, positive or negative, goes out into the universe, and it will affect the energy in the universe. And, it just seems, I could go on a rant. I'm going on a rant, so I'm going to stop. Carolyn, you have a question?
Don Louise asks.
Good morning, Don Louise.
How can we be 100% sure our loved ones are still with us?
I don't know how you can be. I can be. But I suppose it's different for me because I see them. So I'm either crazy and should have been locked up years ago, or I really can see them. I choose to think that I can see them. There are lots of people who've had evidence through me that I can see them. So I'm not sure. I mean, are you the kind of person who, no matter what the evidence in front of you, you still want more? It's never enough. You still want more and more and more. There's a point where you just have to say, what if? Instead of, well, I want more proof, I want more evidence, I want to be 100% sure. Try this tack. And again, it's about changing your attitude. We just talked about attitudes. Change your attitude. Well, what if she's right? What if they're right? What if there is? What if? Try that, because what if they are surviving? What if our loved ones do not die and go dust to dust and ashes to ashes? What if they are still very much alive? What if? Because if we apply what if, that means we start to think a little bit differently. How would we behave if we knew that they could see us? Would we behave differently if we knew that they could see us? How would we speak to other people? What would our attitude be like? What difference would it make in our lives if? What if? Try what if. Stop looking for your 100%. Try what if. And you'll find that you'll start to change for the better, because the last thing we want to do, if our loved ones, if I'm right, if they can see us, the last thing we want to do is to offend or upset them. What if they can see us screaming at our children? What if they can see us cheating on our wife or husband? What if they can see us stealing? What if they can see us with our bad behavior? If it's someone we love and care about, who we would never want to see us doing these awful things, then what if? Would we start to change? Would we start to become better? Would we start to become nicer? I think so. What if?
Dean had a little message.
Go ahead, Dean.
He said, and of course he moved. He said they made some mistakes. My chair is rocking like an earthquake is going on. The concrete guys made some mistakes, and my house is going up right now again.
Oh no. Well, we're thinking of you.
He's a trooper. He's still watching the show.
You're a darling. Thank you. Al, question.
Albertine asks,
good morning, Albertine.
My best friend Ina died 10 years ago. She died on vacation in France. She's a mother. Is she now in peace or in shock?
Albertine, this is 10 years ago. I'm asking Gregor because this is not one for me. This is what I'd like you to do. This is what Gregor would like you to do. I'd like you to close your eyes and visualize your friend sitting on a warm beach by the ocean with the sun shining. not in shock, but peaceful, happy, quiet within her own self. That's how you need to imagine her, because that's how she is. Hope that's helpful. Karen?
Mary has a question. I'm stoked, and I think you are all fascinating.
Good morning, Mary. Before we go any further, sorry. You're stoked. What does stoked?
Happy.
Oh,
Thrilled.
Oh, I'm stoked. Okay. All right.
My husband lost his dad at a young age. This has had a profound effect on his life. Also, my dad passed last year. Is there any advice from either dad?
I can give you some advice from Grey Eagle, which I suspect is coming from both your dads. I'm going to talk first to the little boy who lost his dad, who has grown into quite something, actually, quite a good man. If you could tell your husband that his father has been watching him and watching over him and is so proud of him and so thrilled with you. You nag at him a bit, apparently, but maybe he needs it. But I don't think there's been a day when his dad has not visited him, and I'm going to say the same for you. I've got I don't do this, do I? I've got a lovely man standing to my left side here who just wants to blow kisses at you and tells me how lovely he thinks you are. He seems really, really lovely. He's just smiling, beaming, and thrilled to have the opportunity, and he's blowing kisses. What advice would they give to you? Continue as you're doing. No more nagging. It's so hard, isn't it, for us women? We do nag, don't we? I do the same thing. I nag my daughter just the same. It's part of being a woman, I suppose. Although men can nag too, big time, can't they? But I think live your life to the fullest. And your dad has really sparkling, twinkling eyes, I have to say. And just to let you know that you'll see him again. You will, when it's your turn. Quite a while, I think you've got to wait, though. You'll be pleased to know. All right, let's move on, Al.
We have a comment from Star Tarot, White Witch.
Star. Is this the one we talked to earlier?
It is, the one who lost her mom. Thank you so much. I can't express how much that message means to me. My heart is breaking. Please, can Grey Eagle tell me if my mom will visit me? I miss her so much.
I think, darling, look, she's already, oh, look, I'm tearing up now. Don't get upset. You know, when people talk about their mums, I have a relationship. I won't talk about my mother. I have a relationship with my daughter. I'm terrified of dying, not at all of the dying process or what happens to me afterwards, because I'm sure I got some things wrong. I'm sure I got some things right too. But I always because being a mum is a special thing. And as a mum, my daughter and I, we're very fortunate, we're very close. And I worry, I'm scared to death of how she's going to be and what she's going to be doing once I'm gone. Because we've talked this morning already for about an hour. We talk every day. Last night I was talking to her at 11 o'clock. Every night when she puts my darling boy to bed, she calls me, we FaceTime, and we have a reading session, the two of us. So we have a really wonderful relationship. What on earth is she going to do when I'm not around? And that's the scary part for me. And I think your mum has already visited you. I think she's, even as I'm talking to you, standing right by your side. I don't think it's a question of will she visit you, because the answer is absolutely yes, she will. I think it's a question of will you see her? Will you be able to see her? And sometimes when we're in grief, sometimes that grief can act a little bit like a wall, and we don't necessarily see because the grief can block us. But give yourself a little bit of time. when that grief has gone away, I'm told to tell you, I can hear a lovely lady singing, "I'll see you in my dreams." So there you have it, Star. You'll see her in your dreams. Carolyn.
Brother Nate asks,
Good morning, Brother Nate.
On average, how many lifetimes must a soul live on earth before we graduate to the next higher development, spiritual level?
I don't know. How about that? I'd love to be able to answer you, Nate. I mean, we do so enjoy your emails. We do so enjoy your points of view, but as you should know back, because I know you've been following me for a while, I'm not an expert on reincarnation. I don't necessarily believe that every one of us comes back to this earth to live it all over again. The idea of, you know, we come here, we die, we go up there, we stay for a bit, we come back down, up and down. I call it the yo-yo syndrome. I don't necessarily believe that that is how it is. So to answer how many lifetimes and all the rest of it, I think, darling, I would love to be able to answer you, but you're asking the wrong person. So I don't know. I can't answer that question. I think it's way more complicated than we like to think it is. And I think reincarnation in itself is way more complex and way more complicated than we, you know, than many people choose to believe. That's just my opinion. Al, question.
We have Hannah ask the question.
So I think that people took notice of me when I said, ask your questions no matter what, because we've got them coming fast and furious, which I just love. So sorry, I interrupted you. I have a habit of doing that. I'm sorry, Al. Go ahead.
She says, I want to know if my mother, Yvonne, is resting in peace. She passed away when I was 8, and I never got to say goodbye.
That's a while ago.
I am from Canada, currently living in Peru. And she says, please, I hope you read my message.
Again, I'm going to look to Grey Eagle here. I think we've started something. We have to be careful. This is not a show about me giving messages. I always look to Grey Eagle, absolutely, for his input. And he, in this particular case, has placed his hand on my shoulder because apparently your situation, I mean, everybody has, when you lose a parent, and especially when you're young, we just was talking to a young lady whose husband lost his father when he was young. When you lose a parent when you're young, it can have a very profound effect on you. And I think that you're still in some ways, darling, suffering from the effect of what happened to you and the experiences, and especially in how the rest of your family dealt with that experience and how they helped you or didn't necessarily help you to deal with it. The problem is that, you know, everyone else is in so much grief. Sometimes we're blinded and we don't always see that that one sensitive child is being a little bit neglected in this situation because we're so much in grief ourselves. We don't see what is going on around us. But I can tell you absolutely, she is at peace, certainly with you, certainly around you a lot. Apparently, you must be thinking of, what is that? Moving or changing your job or something. You're thinking of doing something with your life which is different. Be careful. My advice, Gregor's advice to you, and your family's advice to you, those in the spirit world, don't leap quickly. Take your time. Don't make hasty decisions because of your emotional state. Think things through and then decide. If you'd like to give us a comment on that, I hope you understand that. I don't understand any of it, you know, because I don't know you, do I? I'm just giving you messages from the spirit world. But if you understand or you'd like to comment about that, please, you know, feel free to do so, darling, because we'll Alan and Carolyn will watch for that. Carolyn.
Priscilla has a question.
Good morning, Priscilla.
Hi, Rosemary. Long time. I haven't been on.
Where are you? Where have you been? Did you neglect us completely?
I am making a major decision and I need blessings from you and advice from my late dad on the same, please.
I've started something this morning, haven't I? All right, I will say just this. I'm listening to Grey Eagle. There are rights and wrongs about this decision, as you well know. But you've already made your choices. So you need to go ahead with what feels right within you. I mean, as with every choice that we make, there are some things that work out really well and some things that don't necessarily. And I think that's going to be the same thing here. But you've already made your choice. So having made your choice, you know, it's a bit like hold your nose and jump off the cliff. You won't fall. There'll always be someone to catch you, and your loved ones in the spirit world will be there to catch you. But I think that this is a very major decision that you're, you know, I don't mean to be talking about it flippantly, because Grey Eagle tells me this is a life changer here, this big life changer that you're going through here. So I don't think I'm being flippant. I think that you will go forward. You will make this successful because of your determination. You will have a few regrets, but moving forward is the only thing you can do. And changing your life, you know this as well as I, changing your life is the only thing you can do. So if you want your family's blessings, it sounds to me as if you've got them. And certainly, you know, if you ever need confirmation, you know, look to the stars. That's where your family will be, twinkling down at you, just letting you know that you are not alone. Al.
Jeanette asks,
good morning, Jeanette.
In the spirit world, will I be able to see and talk to ancestors of generations ago?
Oh, I'm so glad this is a regular question. I'm not going to answer any more questions to do with, well, that's not true. Just keep the questions coming. Will you be able to, when you've passed, or like me as you talk? So either way, I guess the answer is the same. When we pass, just let me say this, when we pass, it's Jeanette, right? Am I right? When we pass into the spirit world, we are able to connect again with our families. We're able to, you know, do many things. We're able to travel. We're able to explore, and we can learn more and more and more knowledge. Will it be possible for you to connect with your ancestors? Grey Eagle says, without a doubt. So I'm going with him because I was thinking about it. I wasn't sure, but he says, without a doubt. So there you go. If you choose that path, that's the route you want to take, and that's the, you know, that is going to give you the wisdom and the growth and the knowledge that you're looking for. Absolutely. That is exactly what you'll be able to do. There you go. Whose turn is it now?
Brooks has a question.
Good morning, Brooks.
I often wonder if my parents, who have passed, now see and understand how their other two daughters have manipulated events throughout the years and cruelty inflicted on animals as well.
I'm going to say, oh, that sounds like an awful situation, but I'm going to say that this is how clearly our loved ones in the spirit world will see. When I first, and you've heard me say this before, some of you, when I first realized just how clearly those in the spirit world could see, I started using bubble bath in my bath water. Now, people think I'm being funny, but actually it's the truth, because what happened was, once I realized how very, very clearly they could see, not just, you know, in a physical sense, but they can even see in our minds. They can read our thoughts as if we're speaking them out loud. There is nothing that they don't know if they want to know. There is nothing that they can't see if they want to. It's possible that your parents are still wanting to turn a blind eye to everything that is going on, but Grey Eagle tells me that that isn't the case. So everything that they need to know and everything that they prefer not to know, they now know. They now do know. And you know, it's an awful thing in a way, because if you know what you're telling us is that you know, they missed an awful lot. They missed the cruelty. They missed the meanness. They missed all of that awful stuff that was going on. Probably because they chose to turn a blind eye. They chose not to see it. But now they have to see it, and now they have to face it, and now they have to deal with the consequences of that, which is that they have to look to themselves to see, you know, what they did or did not do in order to, you know, for this to happen. We, you know, when we get to the spirit world, the first thing we have to do is to look at ourselves to see who we are, what we are, and how we were when we were here on this earth plane. And we have to face that, and we have to deal with the consequences of our actions, because every action that we take affects someone, either in a good way or adversely. Everything we say, everything we talk about, every letter we write, every 5 minutes that I have with my grandson is 5 minutes that I can make a difference to his life, negatively or positively. If we are holding on to old burdens, and darling, try not to do that. I know that you've suffered, but if you're holding on to old burdens, it will come through. That poisonous stuff will seep through and will touch other people in your lives. So try not to let that happen. But I think it's very important for us to understand that those in the spirit world can see as much as they choose to see, can hear as much as they choose to hear. And they don't really have too many options to ignore what is going on in front of them. Al, do you want to say anything about that before we go any further? Do you have any comments about that, or about anything else that we've talked about this morning?
Two things. I'm reminded of, you know, the bubble of protection that you always talk about, but I'm also reminded when you've been talking about sort of putting love and kindness out there. And if we take a stance of not doing anything, then it won't spread. But if you tell one or two people, those two people will tell four people, then they'll, and it actually can have an exponential effect. And I think if we do that more as a society, there will be more love, there will be more kindness. But if you don't do it, it's not going to start.
I think that what every one of us needs to understand is that each one of us is responsible for the planet. Each one of us is responsible for the energy that is created, negative or positive, every one of us. And every time you do not stand up to an injustice, every time you let it slide past you, every time you tell yourself, well, it's got nothing to do with me, every time you say, oh, I'm not getting involved in that, every time you choose to let something slide, or you choose, as the last young lady's question showed, you choose to turn a blind eye, you are equally responsible for the negativity and the meanness that is around us. It makes you equally responsible. You cannot complain that a politician is being mean if you hear someone being mean, even if it's in a supermarket, and you don't stand up and say, hey, you must be having a bad day today, but no, don't do that. Every time you let something go, every time you don't speak out, and you know, you've only got to look back at recent history. The Second World War is recent history, you know, not that long ago. If people had stood out against Hitler, if people had spoken up, universally, if people had spoken up, it wouldn't have happened. But we are responsible for our planet. Every one of us individually is responsible for our planet, for our own little part of this world, to make it better or to make it worse. So don't be afraid to stand up and be counted. If you don't complain about the consequences. Don't complain that the world is a mean place. Don't complain that the world is negative. But hey, what can I do? You know, because you can do something. Let's have another question, shall we?
So we have Raya, R-E-A. I think it's Raya or Ray.
Good morning.
How many times does a soul get the chance to see the light again if the first time the spirit refused to go? Really good question.
What?
So after they passed away, after you pass away, this is the way I'm interpreting it. After you pass away, uh,
Yes.
you have essentially, do you have a choice to see the light? And if you refuse that choice, do you see it again? Or can you see it again?
Most of us, as we're as we're dying, in the process of dying, will totally embrace the light. It comes at you, and or you come at it, whatever it, you connect with it. There it is, and you embrace it. It's warming, it's loving, it's calling to you. It's beautiful, it's calming, it's peace, more peace than you can imagine. So most of us will embrace that. I did have, and I do tell this story in one of my books. I can't remember which one, um, about a little girl. She was in she had an issue with her lungs, and in the days when kids were in those awful lung machines, do you remember those? Remember those things? So to help them to breathe, she was in one of those for most of her young life. She was something like 8 or 9 or so when she passed. Precocious, very precocious child. And we were called in, or I was called in by Grey Eagle to help her to cross over, because she was refusing and refusing. She wanted to. She wouldn't. She couldn't come back, and she didn't want to go forward, and she just sat down. Basically, if you can imagine a spoiled little child, a little girl, having a little bit of a temper tantrum, which lasted quite a while, I have to tell you, sitting in the tunnel saying, well, I'm not going, and you can't make me. And that's what she said to me. Well, I'm not going, you can't make me. And she just wanted a mummy, and she was frightened. So there are a few reasons why somebody might refuse the light. But we do what is called rescue work, and we try to help those people who are struggling, like this little girl. The only way that I could actually get her to even take a look and to glimpse the light was to tell her, because I'm used to dealing with precocious children from time to time. I'm good with kids. And I just said to her, because I'm not going, you can't make me. So there. And I said, well, you can't go. Try the reverse, whatever that is, psychology, tried that reverse psychology. We can't go. I can if I want. No, don't think so. Don't think you can. Yes, I can. I can if I want. And it was the way I actually managed to get her to go forward. And once she had moved forward and she saw what was ahead of her, there was no question that she literally ran to the light. If you are a soul of the light who has been influenced into the dark, and you are afraid to go to the light because you don't want to see who you really are, then the opportunity will be given to you again and again and again to change your mind if you would like to. Or you can stay in the dark for as long as you like. But yes, the opportunity to go into the light is very much an option. And, God hears us if we're crying out, if our soul is crying out for help or for a need. That's what happens. He will show you the light, and you will choose to grasp that light, to enter the light, or not is your choice, whatever, but it will be shown to you again and again. If you are of the light, God will always give you the opportunity to go into the light again, 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 again. I think I've got that right. I'm checking with Gradle, and he's nodding his agreement there. So yeah, that's something I've learned a long time ago. Actually, it's something I learned through doing rescue work. So it's an important lesson for me. Carolyn, do we have another question?
Star Tarot asks,
Good morning,
Rosemary.
Star. No, I'm going to call you, what is it, Star Tarot or whatever. I'm going to just call you Star because I love that name.
Please, could Grey Eagle tell me if I have a gift to share with the world?
Straight, oh gosh, it came out of the blue so fast. Yes, you do. You have lovely healing hands. Why don't you use them instead of doing what you're doing? Now, you think about that. Al, question?
We have comments from Hannah. Would you like to hear those comments?
Oh, God, yes, love to.
She says, "You are amazing. I'm crying right now watching this video. I miss my mom, Yvonne, so much about what you told me about some changes coming in my life. I currently work as a model in Peru, and I'm working with new brands and soon moving to a different house. Just don't know what other changes and emotionally." And she says, "Again, thank you so much, Rosemary. I cried hearing you say everything what you said. God bless you and hugs."
Well, just, darling, thank you for that. And just remember, remember, remember that she's with you. Don't despair. She's with you. And obviously knows about all the changes that are going on because that's what she said. And I don't know. You're in Peru. I mean, I don't know who you are. So this is straight from her. I know that we are running out of time slowly. Al, do you want to say any more, make any more comments? Is there another question either of you can see that really you think needs to be asked?
If we can encourage, there are a few questions, but if we can encourage them to ask again next week, that would be wonderful.
As I say, we try to answer the questions in order. We will not turn down any of your questions. Al and Carolyn throw them at me and I do with them what I can. If somebody asks a question that for whatever reason we don't like, or I mean, because we do get occasionally some mean people on the show, we'll just ignore you, actually. So don't bother, because it goes over our head. Yes, please, don't be discouraged if we didn't get to your question. Come on a little earlier next week. Put your question in earlier, so hopefully it will be the first asked, and we'll do our best to answer any questions that you have. We will be doing tomorrow night. We're going to be talking to a friend of Al's who is coming on the show, Everything is Attitude, which is at 6 o'clock Standard Eastern Time. We're going to be talking, I think, Al, did you say a little bit about bereavement?
Yes, we are. Yes.
So we're going to be talking about attitudes about bereavement and how Al's friend, how we can help him and if we can find a recipe for him for life, because that's what we're about. But sort of just as an FYI for everybody, so many people have, different ideas about bereavement, how we should behave, what we should do, how long we should grieve, all of those things. There are people out there with all these set rules and regulations of, after a year, you should be moving on with your life, that sort of thing. No, not necessarily. If you're the kind of person who can't do that, absolutely not. But we're going to be discussing this more tomorrow, 6 o'clock Standard Eastern Time, and we're going to have our guest, who is a longtime friend of Al's, who I met one time, I think, once.
Yes. Yes.
One time. That's all I'm going to say. So you, join us tomorrow at 6 o'clock if you want to know more. What time is that? 4 o'clock Colorado time, is it, Al?
Correct.
Yes. So 6 o'clock Standard Eastern Time for Everything is Attitude. If you want to do more with the recipes, because I mentioned to people about recipes and we have had a few. Now, as much as I love you all, and I'm mentioning, I think to Nate in particular, sent us 2 different videos with a recipe. I don't want other people's videos, but the recipe sounds very interesting, Nate. So certainly, if you want to send in a recipe, what I'd like you to do is to just, talk about the recipe, the particular thing that you used to do at Christmas time, or that you do now, that one special food that you have at Christmas time, or if you don't celebrate Christmas, on your special holiday. We'd love to hear about that one special treat that you do, that that you look forward to at those special holiday times. And if you'd like to send us the recipe, some of us are going to try them out. Carolyn said to me earlier, I don't want to be going home and having to cook 10 recipes, and I'm not going to send her home having to cook 10 recipes. But we would like to sort of have the recipes written down, please, with the recipe and the method. And maybe if you could also attach to this, you know, a couple of paragraphs. Please don't send us a litany. Don't send us a book. Don't send us pages and pages. We won't read it. It's too much for us. We get too much correspondence. So a couple of paragraphs as to why this one Christmas treat is the one that you chose and why it's special to you, in a couple of paragraphs only. We'd love to read that. And we'll choose one of the recipes, or maybe even 2 or 3 of the recipes, to share with the rest of you around Christmas time, or maybe just after, maybe before Christmas. We'll have to do it before Christmas, won't we? Because then other people, if they want to try them, they can. If you'd like to watch my video on bread and butter pudding, which we put out yesterday, a friend of mine said it tastes a little bit like, what was that? French toast. A little bit, but way more delicious. Would you say, Carolyn? Carolyn had a big piece of it yesterday. So good. And I couldn't stop nibbling it all through the day. I put a spoon by it, which is a big mistake. And every time I went into the kitchen, I'd have another little tiny taste and another little tiny taste. I love bread and butter pudding. It's one of my favorites. It's a very English thing, but my bread and butter pudding is an elevated, naturally, an elevated bread and butter pudding recipe. So watch the video if you'd like to do that. Anything else that we need to talk about, Al? We are so close to doing our classes. We're so close to getting, you know, getting those online. So feel free, if you want to know any more information about anything that we do, Rosemary at rosemaryaltea.com. If you want to know any more, if you would like to be on the show, on the Everything is Attitude show, it is the
info
email.
at everythingisattitude.com.
What is it?
Info at everythingisattitude.com.
Info at everythingisattitude.com. If you want to be on the show or participate in that show, we'd love to have you on. And in the meantime, until we see you again, please, 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 this is where I have to find that little arrow flitting about somewhere. There it is. Please, please, please have a very, very, very blessed day. Thank you for joining us on the show today. And where would that arrow be? Oh, there it is. It's like a little butterfly flitting about.